Hi there, everybody. Welcome. I think we're just going to wait about a minute just so that everybody can log in and into the session. So we'll just wait about a minute or so for everybody to be able to log in. But welcome to those who have. So I don't know if you want to put in the chat box while we're just waiting for everybody to log in where you're from in the country. It'd be interesting to see what sort of spread we've got. Also test out the chat box as well. UK, okay. Whereabouts in the UK? Bristol, okay. So that's near Edward. London, York, Luton. Oh, rainy Argyll. It's rainy Gloucestershire here. Reading, Bristol.
Rainy everywhere, I think, today.
Yeah. Oh, we got a whole load. Middlesbrough, Sheffield, Birmingham. We're all over the place. Welcome. Thanks for joining the session today. Another Birmingham. Bedford. Lovely. Well, I hope you're all...
Geographical spread.
Yeah, it's good. Nice geographical spread. Right, I think we can probably get going as it's 2 minutes past the hour. Just to say good afternoon and thank you everyone for joining this session today. Ready, Steady, Go, Psychometric Testing and LinkedIn event hosted by the AICPA and CIMA. Just a quick introduction to myself. I'm Claire Drose and I am the team lead for the student recruitment team at the AICPA and CIMA. I remotely manage a team of 4 recruitment managers at the association who are based UK-wide and have the pleasure of working with universities and students like yourselves. So I'll be presenting today along with my colleague, Edward, as you can see here. And we are hoping to enlighten, help and guide you with your individual journeys. You may be in your first year at university, you may be in your final year. That really doesn't matter, as this session should be able to help you now by giving you some hints and tips that maybe you weren't aware of, and get you prepared for any upcoming interviews potentially. So as we're a professional qualification, we found with the close work that we do with thousands of employers and graduate recruiters in particular, that it's important that applicants are on LinkedIn and well practiced when it comes to psychometric testing. Hence putting this session on for you today. So we'll sort of first start off with looking at psychometric testing and then we'll go into the LinkedIn part of the session. So we sort of divided it into 2. Just to introduce the other co-presenter for today's session, we've got my colleague Edward Goodeve-Docker, and he's an employer relationship manager at the association. And Edward's worked with employers, graduate recruiters for over 15 years now and has received vast amounts of feedback about LinkedIn and particularly LinkedIn profiles and everything. Edward's employers are vast in industry, but particularly he works very closely with the big 4 consulting firms. So he's going to sort of put his, expertise and hints and tips from his experience of working with employers and share those with you today. So let's kick off the session with some psychometric testing. Now, I am going to ask you to put some answers in the chat box and stuff throughout this as well. So it is a bit of an interactive session for you to, get a bit of practice. But first off, we're looking at the typical graduate recruitment process. So this is sort of the cycle that you might find yourself in, depending on employers that you sort of look at potentially, engaging with and going for interviews and everything like that. But you've got the application form. You may be then taken on to doing a psychometric test or some sort of gamification, through to then maybe whittled down, selected for interview. You may then have to go to an assessment centre and then you will get that hired or not hired letter through or, email through. So what we are focusing on here of the cycle is the psychometric testing side of things. And I really feel that if you put a bit of practice in with this side of things, it can really help you. So hence why we're going to do it today. So why do recruiters, first of all, use psychometric tests? So these tests are basically really simple ways of them assessing particular skills and traits that they're looking for their particular roles. So it's those skills and traits that you can't necessarily see on an application form, and it's a way of them being able to pick these out so that they can whittle you down to then interview in that process. Moving on, it's to really identify those candidates with the greatest likelihood of success in the role and the organization. So they're quite complex sort of tests put together, not complex potentially from what you've got to do, but in the background as to the selection process and how the company might use those psychometric tests. And obviously it's a cost-effective way of assessing a big number of candidates at that first initial stage of that whole process. So there's lots of different types of psychometric tests. There's verbal, numerical, situational judgment, logical reasoning, and personality. And as you can see, there's just on the that side of the presentation, just some examples of a few of the different types of tests. So, as I said, there's no better thing with psychometric testing than to sort of have a bit of practice, give it a go, and get a flavour of what it's all about, and maybe where you might need to just put a bit more practice in, and we'll go from there. So, numerical practice. Now, I'm going to give a certain amount of time, and I'm going to use my phone for this so that I can keep a track of time as to how much time, because this is all also based on a certain amount of time that you'd have in a psychometric test. But basically, I want you to have a look at this, and I want to put your answers in the chat box. So how many calories originated in fat will be consumed when eating 1.5 cups of product X? So if you can start putting your answers in the chat box as soon as you can. Well, we've got some answers already coming through. Okay, so we've got quite a few of the
Seems
same.
to be quite popular.
Yeah. Brilliant. So D, or somebody's very confident that it's D there. They put it multiple times. The D's. They're all coming through.
These are very, very savvy attendees, Claire. Normally we've got quite a split on this answer.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. Well, okay. I think I was going to sort of do the slide and have it sort of show the answer and everything, but I have a feeling that on this format and on this screen I can't do that. But basically, you are all correct. It is D. And I'm just going to see if I go forward. No, it doesn't do it. It doesn't bring up my D only. So, the main point of this is that a lot of these, you'll be presented with a lot of information. And actually, it's only tiny bit of information that you need. So it can look quite daunting as to the amount of information that you're given there, and you think you're going to have to do loads of calculations and everything. But the whole point is that it's quick fire stuff to get through. You look at the question, how many calories? So you check out how the calorie side of things originated in fat. So calories from fat will be consumed when eating 1.5 cups of product X. So you don't actually need about 90% of that information on there at all to be able to come up with the answer. So it's just really sort of realizing that and training your brain to sort of pick out those key things and to really read the question, because that's a key as well. It's not just sort of going over a question and thinking, I think I can work this out. It is actually about really reading what the question's asking as well. So I'm going to go to the next one. In which year was the average number of daily swimmers the highest? So A, B, C, D, if you want to put it in your chat box.
Bit of a pause here, Claire. I think there's some people trying to work this out.
Okay, we've got some coming through. Lovely. There seems to be a bit of a theme at the moment. Is anybody going to go for anything different? We've got some quite clever people here.
I was going to say it seems like they don't need any psychometric training.
Brilliant. So there's lots. Pretty much, I think it's quite unanimous. I haven't seen anything else but B, and you would be correct in thinking it's B. Yeah. So again, it's a lot of information on there that you can get a bit sidetracked with, but really it's quite easy to mentally work out. You don't need a calculator. You don't need to be doing any sort of big maths sums to work this out, that the average, in which year the average number of daily swimmers was the highest, well, you can quite easily see that it's B, and that's by sort of taking all the rounded figures and adding it all together. Brilliant. So you're off to a good start, guys, here. Numerical stuff's quite good. Another numerical one. So which department has the greatest percentage increase in expenditure between 2010-11 and 2011-12? What are we going to say? So what is it? A, B, C, D, or E? Okay, we've got some coming through now.
Definitely took a few more seconds to work the numbers on this one, but
yeah,
it seems to be following the same theme again.
Yeah. Okay, everybody seems to be going for the same, going for that A. So again, correct, unanimous on A, and you are correct, Department of Work and Pensions. And again, as I said, it's not all those figures. You do not have to be spending your time working out each one. You can simply round numbers up to be able to quickly work out what the answer might be. And with this, it's sort of quite easy to sort of round things up and sort of see which has the greatest percentage increase just by rounding the numbers up and doing a very rough calculation. So logical reasoning. So this is a bit more where people do tend to start having a little bit more of a bit more tricky, because this is something that you may not do every day, so this is what comes next in the sequence. So if you want to have a go at this, I think we've got an answer coming through already. So what have we got coming through? Oh, we've got some differing ones here this time, haven't we, Edward? Mm-hmm. A, D, C. Any more for any more? Okay, we've got some more coming through now. And a load of A's this time. And that's correct. So A is the correct answer. Okay, so you have a pattern there. You've got the first shape there, and then you've got the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then you go back to the first, and then what would it be? It would be the second one that was in the pattern, if you can see that. I hope my explanation is all right with that. But basically, there's a pattern of 4, and you're looking for the second one along again. So next, another logical reasoning one. Which comes next in the sequence? What are you going to go for? Right. B, E, D. We've got some different ones coming on. E. I'm going to give some people a bit more time with this because these do tend to take a bit longer and a bit more sort of working out, because we've got quite a
this is the first. I think this is the first one that we've had answers for all 5 answers come through. So there's definitely challenging a bit more. And I wouldn't say it seems to be more A's and E's than anything else.
Okay. So there's still some coming through. Yeah, so A's, E's, a couple of D's. Okay, looks like everybody's stopped putting their answers in. Well, the correct answer is E. And that is because if you look at the first one, you have got, so the amount of lines, so you've not the shaded in bit, but the amount of lines, which is 4, so it's a square, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the shape in the middle has got 4 lines to make that shape. The second one, you've got the square, and then you've got that sort of hourglass type of shape. You've got 4 lines on the square, and then you've got 4 lines making the hourglass shape. The third one, you've got the 3 lines that make the triangle, and you've got the circle, which is 1 line, and then the 2 in the middle to make 3 lines, and so on. So it's the same as the amount of lines on the outer shape as the inner shape. So it's nothing to do with the shading or the colors or anything like that. It's more to do with the outer and inner shape, but also it's it is actually to do with the shading. Sorry, it's the black and then the nothing, and then the black and then nothing, and then black as well. And you'll see with E, it's got the black on the outside and then the 4 lines in the middle, as well as the outer shape. So hopefully everybody got that, because that one's a bit of a trickier one to explain as well. So what comes next in the sequence? I'll give you some minutes. Okay, we've got some coming through.
B's, D's, and E's.
Okay.
Definitely a surge of B's.
Yeah, there's a surge coming through. Right. So a lot of B's. Okay. Looks like you guys are getting on with this logical reasoning. I think the majority really is sort of saying B's now, and you're correct. So it's B. And that is because you've got several factors here. You've got the amount of black circles. So you've got the 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, and then 2 pattern. And then you've also got the black triangle in the corners. So you've got left hand upper side, right hand upper side, left hand lower side, right hand lower side, left hand upper side, and then you go for the right hand upper side. So there's just, this is all about training your brain and practicing and practicing, because that's all that it is. It's that brain training side of things. Obviously, you've got lots of other different types of psychometric tests that you can do, and that's more based on some of them more personality based, which that's you can't practice for that, but these are the ones, particularly the numerical ones, the logical reasoning ones, that you can look at and you can take some time and practice and really get your brain sort of into gear. So how to prepare, as I said, practice. Get yourself in a good physical, mental shape for these. Do your research, find out what types of tests you'll be facing. You can always ask that sort of question. Don't be afraid to ask, to sort of be able to be prepared for things. Work out timings. How really sort of think, how long have you got? How many questions you got? You can say, right, I've got to get on with this. Does the difficulty increase as you progress through? And sometimes that is the case, that they start off easy and then it sort of progressively gets a bit more tricky. You have to ask the question, make sure if you can use materials like sort of a calculator or a blank piece of paper. And you can also ask questions about how potentially it'd be marked. But there's lots of different things about being prepared and being reducing that stress for yourself as well when you're going into a psychometric test scenario. There are some little sort of practicing things underneath here that you could probably go on to, and I don't know if Edward has got access to be able to put that in the chat, but there's particularly some of them that you can find for free on the internet to be able to practice. So we've got assessment day, we've got Procter & Gamble, Graduates First, job test prep, psychometric success, PwC, psychometric I think it's eLearn, and Institute of Psychometric Coaching. So there's lots, literally, if you Google psychometric tests free practice and stuff, there's lots of different things that come up. So I would say go on there, try lots of different ones. As I said, there's lots that you can sort of be going through. Now we've got, and this is all about job opportunities and stuff like that, but I did want to sort of mention it for you today because, if you're looking at the psychometric testing and LinkedIn webinar, then you may be also interested in job opportunities. We've got something called the Global Careers Hub. If you just go onto the AICPA and CIMA website and search through the Global Careers Hub, you can find a whole load of job opportunities on there as well. And I know that Edward will be talking about LinkedIn and how you can also potentially get job opportunities through that way as well by connecting with my team. But do go on. We try and link you guys as much as possible with the employers that we work with, so please do have a little look at that. And it's not just graduate jobs, so if you're in your first or second year and you're just looking at placements or summer internships, we do sort of definitely shout out about those, particularly on our LinkedIn pages as well. So Edward, I will pass on to you now, but thank you everybody for taking part in the interactive bit of the psychometric testing. I always think to try and get the message across, it's easier to have a go, and then you can see what you found easy, what you didn't, to see what you might want to work on.
So just wanted to address a couple of questions. I've replied already in the chat. This recording should be available. It is being recorded and it will be available after the session has finished. In terms of the other questions about the jobs, part-time jobs on the graduate and work placement front are quite rare. That's not a very often one, but your 20 hours should allow you to do internships if they're short internships or work experience opportunities. And in relation to them being remote, that's a real mixed bag at the moment. Some companies we're working with are doing remote graduate schemes or remote internships. Some are requiring you to be in person like 1 or 2 days a week. Some are full time. So it's very much horses for courses, and you'll have to look at that on each application as you go. Speaking with a lot of businesses, there seems to be the trend that they're starting to ask graduates and inexperienced hires to come in more, because that's where you get more support. If you're sitting at home, it's a lot harder to ask people for support on things that you don't understand. But I'm here to talk to you about LinkedIn and what LinkedIn is. So I'm sure you are all on a type of social media. This doesn't quite work on one side without the animations, but you've got the original. You've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got Reddit, you've got Instagram, TikTok, even things like Strava and Twitch for people who want to exercise or for computer games. But the one that we're talking about today is LinkedIn, and now LinkedIn is exactly the same as all of these others in the grand scheme of things. What you're doing is you're talking about yourself and you're interacting with other people. But what it isn't, it's not like Facebook or TikTok where you're sharing pictures of cats or memes or videos about funny things. What you are sharing is you're sharing about your achievements. You're sharing about yourself from a professional perspective. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to give people an idea about what you are like purely for a career or work-based perspective. So I say this to everybody over and over again with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is social media, and be open and share. But at the same time, be mindful that if you had a job, or if you were at a company doing some work experience, or even just having like a company tour or something like that, think about, would I say something like this in person? Would I comment on something like this in person or not? And if you wouldn't, don't put it on LinkedIn. It's that simple. If you wouldn't say it to someone face to face, don't put it on LinkedIn. So, what is LinkedIn and why is it good for you? So, as I said, LinkedIn is a social media network. It's been around for a number of years. It's owned by Microsoft now, which actually helps because it's baked into some Microsoft products, which makes it easier for things like sharing your CV from Word and interacting as well. When you start using Outlook, you'll find that LinkedIn plugs in quite smoothly to that. But it's not just a place to share content. It's a place that companies share their own content, and also where they share their vacancies and hiring. And then finally, in more recent years, LinkedIn is also in line with a sort of recruitment and employability. They've created an educational platform with a load of virtual courses that will aid and increase your skills, which hopefully in the long run will be able to help you get hired. And all of these courses can be accessed through LinkedIn. There's a large chunk of them are free. There's a load that need to be paid. But the advantage of doing them on there is that they're certified and they're stuck on your LinkedIn account, and people can see what you've done. Now, this is a fact that I saw not that long ago. 85% of jobs are filled via some form of networking. Now, that doesn't mean the CFO or the CEO of a company. That means you saw a job advertised or shared on a social media platform. One of your friends works for this company and said, "Oh, the company I work for are hiring new graduates." It could be anything. It could be your friend's dad has said to your friend, do you know anyone who's studying accountancy, because we've got a vacancy. So networking it's baked in as part and parcel of job hunting these days. It's I'm showing my age a bit, but when I started looking for jobs, you used to have to sort of look in the back of newspapers for job advertisements, and then if you're lucky, you could send off an email, but normally you'd have to post your CV or fax it through. So the landscape has changed a lot in this day and age. So what do you want to do that is going to help you with LinkedIn? So first of all, you need to create a profile that's going to get you noticed. There's a load of things, simple things that you can do for this. Upload a recent profile photo. And I don't mean you sitting there in a coffee shop with a nice coffee, or at a disco nightclub with your mates, or at a picnic or something like that. Just a recent professional photo, something that you would put on your identity card for university, or maybe not something as sort of po-faced as a passport photo, but you need to have something that is remotely professional. Okay, complete your about section. So your about section is what people are going to see when they click into your profile first and foremost. If you've got a job, your about section is more likely to be telling about what skills you have and what you're doing in your role / what you're doing with your company. If you haven't got a job, this is where you want to be talking about your aspirations and what you've done to get to your aspirations so far. Keep it quite simple, quite short, because again, much like anything, in this day and age, people don't have big attention spans. So you need to be able to engage, and someone needs to be able to read it and understand what your about is in probably 3, maybe 4 seconds. Create yourself a LinkedIn cover banner. I've seen some amazing ones. You can go to, if you're good with graphic software, you can create some amazing ones. The simplest ones that I've seen are, you have your picture in the corner and it just says graduate looking for jobs. That's so when people click on your profile, they know what you're about. Make sure you include your work experience, and when I say work experience, I mean anything, because when you're a graduate, you don't have a huge amount of work experience to go with, and employers like to know that you have a work ethic. So whether it's a newspaper round or Domino's delivery driver, or worked in your local pub, or you've been at checkout at Tesco or something like that, include that in your profile, because what that's showing is that you have a work ethic about you, and you're happy to get in and start working, even if it's nothing relating to where your career wants to go. It shows that you're keen, and put your skills in as well. And also include voluntary work. So whether your job is paid or voluntary, and if you're sort of coming at this as a graduate, any work experience that you've done, even if it's a week or 2 or something like that. So it's really keen that at an early stage in your career, you need to be more inclusive about what you're putting on your LinkedIn profile than anything. Now, further down the line, 3 or 4 years' time, you can probably start chopping off your work experience or your Saturday job doing a paper round or something like that, because it's not so relevant. But at the moment, every little bit helps. Now, write your headline. This, I think, is, if you're going to spend any time doing anything, it's the single most important thing that you can do on LinkedIn, because your headline is what people see when they hover over your name with a mouse without clicking into your profile. So if people don't want to click into the profile or anything like that, they just hover over your name. And we've got 2 examples here at the bottom. So we've got Rosie Cook and Alexander Lowe. Now, Rosie Cook seems like a pretty, she's a founder at CEO at Deakin and Blue. Great, pretty high powered. But actually, what does her headline tell you? Does it tell you what Deakin and Blue do? Does it tell you what she does at Deakin and Blue? Does it tell you what skills that she's got? Does it tell you what, does it give you any reason why you want to connect or speak to Rosie Cook, sorry. And it doesn't. Whereas if you look at Alexander Lowe's, you see he does social selling, sales technology enablement, startup advisor, and AI and machine learning enthusiast. So instantly you're going, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to click on his profile and I can find out more information. Okay, so the same thing that you could do, you could just put, new graduate looking for learning opportunities in a finance role, or second year student looking for a placement year, or internship, or summer opportunities or something like that, or looking for any work experience. Keep it short and sweet if you want. You can't you don't want to keep it too long, because then it sort of rolls over and you don't read it all anyway. Okay. And the final thing I'd say is, don't be afraid to ask recommendations. As a famous soft drink company would say, what's the worst that could happen? And obviously their adverts do go down pretty dark routes. But the reality is, you can ask for someone a recommendation. The worst that is going to happen really is they're going to ignore it. And, put on a bit of a thicker skin, and if you're going to ask 10 people, probably 5, 6, maybe even 7 of them, you're going to ignore it, but you're going to get 2, 3 or 4 recommendations out of it. So get a recommendation from your tutor, get a recommendation from your manager at the Tesco store where you worked on the checkout. It just helps build some context, and it gives anybody looking at your profile a bit more of an idea about you and what you're about. Look at it just before I go. Recommendations are basically like a micro reference. So, when people ask you for references, you can say, well, have a look at my LinkedIn profile. I haven't got any work experience, but I've got a load of recommendations from people that I've interacted with so far. So, we talked about making yourself more visible on LinkedIn. Claire's already talked through psychometric testing and all that kind of stuff. But how can LinkedIn actually get you a job or get you to the point when you're doing psychometric testing in the first place? So there's a number of things you can do, and this is the beauty of LinkedIn. It gives you an extra layer of opportunity to interact with companies or people that are going to be of interest to you. So say you're looking for a finance grad scheme, but you're specifically looking for a career in the automotive industry. Look at the companies that you're interested in. So I'd say, okay, look at BMW, Jaguar Land Rover, Ford, Tesla, any of the companies that you're interested in, follow those straight away. Then go and have a look, and LinkedIn will let you search, and there's functionality that you can go in and you can search Ford or Tesla for their CFO or their finance director. If you're looking at finance grad schemes, if you're looking at other ones, pick the relevant people, or the HR director or chief people officers. Start looking for these people, and LinkedIn has two options. So most people will think, oh, connect. Why would that person want to connect with me? They're just going to ignore me and they don't know me, so they're not going to connect with me, which is true. But LinkedIn offer you a separate option, which is you can just follow. So some people have this default on their profile, others you have to manually select it. But start following people. And what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see what they're talking about. You'll be able to see what they're posting, what they're liking, and what they're on LinkedIn for. Now, some people are rubbish and they just don't have a profile at all. I've worked with some people who've got 40 years experience and they've got one line, CFO, 40 years, and that's it. So, those kind of people aren't going to be the ones who are going to be posting too much on LinkedIn. But at the flip end of it is that you're going to have a lot of people who are going to have some quite, high levels of engagement on there. For example, I know the managing consultant for EY Consulting in the UK. He's posting 3 or 4 times a day. He's got thousands of followers. You can go and follow him, and you'll be able to see what he's talking about. And he's talking at the moment, he's talking about ESG and about how they're doing a load of stuff with EY. And the companies they work with on ESG, but then he'll also post about when they're recruiting, what they're recruiting for, and how. So you'll get a bit of a snapshot, and quite often you'll hear about things sooner than when they do. So, for example, he will post and go, next week our grad scheme is going live, and and you can keep an eye out for that. But once you're following them, this is the opportunity that you have to engage with them. So even if it's like something simple as just liking one of their posts or making a comment goes, wow, this looks amazing, or anything like that. Or if, say, for example, someone posts, oh, we're opening up our grad scheme, you can, if they've shared a link, you can click into the link and it will take you straight through it. But if they're saying we haven't, it is opening up soon, you could write a message and go, oh, this looks amazing, I'm really keen to apply. Is there anything in particular that you look for? And I can guarantee that the people who are posting this kind of stuff will buy into that, and they'll be like, oh, great, yeah, reach out to this person, or these are the things, here's a link to a page that we're doing. And what this is doing is it's doing two things. It's putting your name in the back of their mind. So they may not be thinking, oh, Edward Goody Docker, oh, great, he's going to apply for the grad scheme, I'm going to keep my eye out for him. But what it will be is that, oh, Edward Goody Docker, subconsciously, that name will just be sort of knocking around there. It may not be thinking anything more than that, but each interaction just adds it a little bit into the subconscious. You can do this over and over again with all the different people that you're working with, that you're looking to engage with, and all that kind of stuff. It's great. The next thing you do, and this may seem like something that makes absolutely no difference to how it works for you, but actually what it does is it does a lot behind the scenes with LinkedIn, is give yourself your own custom URL. So just go in, and as you can see, mine is my name. This, as I said, it all it does is it improves your visibility. So it just means LinkedIn just puts you that little bit up the ranking a bit when it's showing people's activity and all that kind of stuff. But the one single thing that I hear from people quite frequently is how they've used LinkedIn to give themselves an advantage once they've got to the interview stage. So we've talked about doing the psychometric testing. Hopefully, but for the evidence that I've seen, you guys are all going to ace any psychometric tests that you come up against. The next stage of a post psychometric testing, it may be like a video interview, or it may be a graduate recruitment day or something like that. But the more information and the more engagement you have with a company before you attend or you have an online interview, the better it's going to stand you when it comes to them filtering down and looking for people to progress to the next stage. So there's a number of things you can do. I worked in recruitment for a number of years, and the biggest single way people would get chopped out of the interview process was if they didn't know about the company. And companies find that insulting. You're coming to us for an interview and you don't actually know what we do. So they would say, I would absolutely say, go and research the company. Look at how many people how many people work for them, what different locations they do, what they actually do. Some companies are really complicated. I was talking to an HR director the other day, and she was like, I've worked for this company for 10 years and I still can't really describe properly what we do. But all I can tell you is that if you've flown on a plane, any plane on this planet will have something that we've made on it somewhere. So even something as simple as that, which helps you understand what this potential employer is doing. The other thing you can do, which is this will absolutely feel weird and counterintuitive to you at this stage, but I can tell you that if it works, it's a great thing to do, is to reach out to people where you're interviewing. So let's say, take the example for Ford. You've done a psychometric test. They've gone, yeah, this is great, Ed. We'd like you to come in and do a graduate assessment day. Okay, great. So I'm going to prepare that. So I'm going to have a look at Ford, and I'm going to be like, okay, Ford, they've got 3 different locations in the UK. They make all these cars here, but they make these cars there. You know, I've done my research into the company, but I want to know a bit more about the Ford graduate scheme. So I'm going to go onto LinkedIn. I'm going to search Ford only, and I'm going to search for someone who says they have finance graduate on their LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to find someone who, who did the finance, who joined 2 years ago as a finance graduate and is now a commercial finance analyst. I'm going to send them a connection request on LinkedIn. I'm going to say, hi, John. I hope you don't mind me reaching out, but I've got an interview or grad assessment day with Ford next month. And I'd really just like to spend 5-10 minutes of your time, if you have it, just to get your opinion on Ford, what it's like to work there, but also if there's anything special that I need to do for the assessment center. Now, everyone would be like, oh, but you can't do that. It feels like it's cheating, or you're trying to give yourself a head start or something like that. And that's absolutely not the case in the slightest. That is showing a very high level of interest in Ford, in the company, and in the process. And you're going to whatever lengths you can to make sure that you are as prepared as possible for the assessment center. Going back to the whole fizzy drink thing, what's the worst that could happen? So there's 2 things. The worst that could happen on one side is that John's going to be like, oh, I'm not sure if I should be doing that. It might feel a bit awkward. And we'll go to the HR and the recruitment team and say, oh, Edward's reached out to me on LinkedIn. They're not going to feel badly of that. That's just going to be one other thing that's going to raise your profile subconsciously within the recruitment team. Or the worst thing is, he just ignores it. The reality is, though, he'll probably be flattered that you've reached out to him, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm more than happy to give you 10 minutes of your time. Or, actually, I'm not the best person to speak to. Go and speak to my manager, because he actually is involved in the recruitment process. But the end result is that there is really very, very little negative impact this could have. When I say very, very little, I haven't heard of anybody who says it's had a negative impact. I'm sure that there will be an instance somewhere, sometime, that it will, but the reality is that this can only have a net zero or a positive impact on your experience in the application process. So bear that in mind when you're looking, and also you can do that even if there isn't a graduate program. You could find someone on a graduate who has a finance graduate job title at a company that you're interested in, and message them and say, look, I've seen that you did a finance graduate program. Have you got one going? Is there one coming along soon? I'd love to know more about it. And they'll be, actually this year we haven't got a graduate scheme running, but we're running it again next year. But we do have a vacancy that's just a regular, vacancy that you could apply to. So there's loads of different ways that you can use LinkedIn to help you with that job getting process, basically. Now, the other thing we can do, we touched on briefly the careers hub. So Claire, as she said, she manages a student recruitment team. There's also Sam, Joe, Diane, and Anthony. I would absolutely recommend to follow all of them on LinkedIn or reach out and connect with them, because they post every single day vacancies where you can get internships, work experience, finance grad programs, and they're reflecting basically all the companies that we work with. We're amplifying their message for when they're recruiting, and so you'll also see other jobs that aren't even sort of graduate schemes advertised there as well. So it's if I'm being really honest, it's quite a lazy and easy way to find job vacancies, because we're doing the donkey work for you. So that's the sort of the entry into how you can use LinkedIn to help you get a job and help you with your job search. Anybody got any questions?
Right. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. I think somebody's sort of tried to fill in because I put the link from my future site, which is basically a site that will help link you with employers, but also employability and everything. But if you've already graduated and you are struggling to fill in the form, as Edward said, please do connect with us on LinkedIn, and we will share as much information on there as well. So, with regards to job opportunities and everything, and it is true, it is every day that myself and my team are posting about jobs or sharing about job opportunities. And as I said, it's not just graduate jobs, there's summer internships, placements, all that side of things. So it's totally sort of open, but we really do try and link you with those employers that we work with as a professional qualification. So I'm just reading through. Sorry, they're flicking up quite quickly, so I couldn't be reading them. It flicks up. Do you have any advice for assessment centres too? Edward, I don't know if you've got anything.
Yeah.
Want to
just one
advise
answer on this one question.
So I'll sort of do that whilst Edward's typing in his answer.
No, I was going to say, no, for assessment centres. So the most important thing to remember on when you're attending an assessment centre is that they are not assessing whether you are technically capable of doing the job or not. They've looked at that and they reckon you've got enough skills based on your CV and your degree at that point. What they are looking at are your people skills, your softer skills, the way you work with other people. That's what assessment centres are all about. So this is a bit of a cheeky trick, but I think the single thing that I hear over and over again where people have been successful is, say you've got a group task and it's 5 of you and you're all talking about someone, and you notice that there's one guy around the table who isn't talking so much. Try and bring them into the conversation. Oh, there we go. Someone just said, can we go back to the last page? There we go. Try and bring them into the conversation. Those kinds of actions are the actions that will help you score very highly in an assessment centre, including everybody, having a broader approach to it, rather than trying to, even if you know it's the right answer, trying to dictate and impose yourself on other people. That kind of activity, imposing yourself and trying to sort of bully your way around, will actually have a negative effect. So, as I say, try and be inclusive, basically.
I think a lot of the time when I've sort of been talking to employers and sort of running assessment centre type sessions at universities, when we are asked to go in and do that, it's, think about it, when you're doing team activities, there's a reason they've put a team activity for you together to do at an assessment centre, and that's to see how you interact within a team. And there doesn't always need to be 5 leaders within that team. They're not always looking for the leader and the loudest and all that side of things. What they're looking for is somebody who plays a really good part within that team. That might be somebody just saying, look, we've got 10 minutes for this activity. I'll keep an eye on time. Let's, and you take control of that side of things. There's lots of different elements. You don't need to be the loudest and shout the most and all that side of things, which I think Ed's also was saying, really. Right, I've got another one here. Thanks both. Been considering your qualification. What is the professional qualification for CIMA like? How can I study the qualification? So just to give you a bit of a brief, obviously we are presenting about psychometric testing and LinkedIn today. However, we are from the AICPA and CIMA, so we represent the CGMA CIMA professional qualification. And if you've never heard of it before, it's an accounting qualification, which is more focused on the management accounting side of things. So that is more that business finance strategic element, as opposed to the stereotypical financial accounting, which is more that tax audit side of things. You can study it lots of different ways. It's usually studied whilst you're working at the same time, and usually your employer would support and pay for you to become qualified, but you don't have to be supported by an employer. You can self-fund and you don't have to be employed. You can just crack on with getting registered with CIMA and start your studies today. At the end of it, you would be a CGMA, which is a Chartered Global Management Accountant. You can study various ways, as I said, through textbooks, online, private tuition providers, or you can do a particular route, which is new to the UK this year, which is the FLP route, which means instead of sitting 16 exams, you sit 3. So that's a pretty nice new route that we've introduced recently. Edward, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add about the actual qualification and everything.
No, the only thing I would say about the qualification is that the differentiator with CIMA versus other accounting qualifications is a lot of businesses we work with lean towards CIMA because they see it as a business qualification rather than just an accounting qualification. So it's accounting at its core, but actually they like the non-business side of it. So a CIMA accountant will look at the bigger picture rather than just the literally the finances. So we're finding that's becoming more and more relevant in this day and age as technology starts to take greater effect, that the need for that sort of classic bean counter accountant is diminishing, and actually they need someone who can interpret that data and who can add value to companies more. And so that's where CIMA sort of that's where our hat always is, and that's where our specialism is, really, I suppose.
Thank you. And I've just seen one come through, and I've not replied to it on chat because I think it's probably quite relevant for a few people listening today. So if I graduate with MSc and MSc with an MSc Accounting and Business, do I have some exemptions to qualify as CIMA? So we've got 16 exam papers in total. If you had an MSc in something to do with the accounting, and that's more of your major, then yes, you'd have 11 exemptions out of the 16 papers. If we've got any undergraduates here who are studying towards an undergraduate accounting finance degree, you would have 8 exemptions towards the 16 papers. If you would be doing an economics degree or something like that, then you would have 4 exemptions towards this out of the 16 papers. So it just depends where you are. If you've got an English degree and nothing to do with accounting finance, you would start from the beginning. It doesn't mean that you can't do CIMA and go down that route at all. It's open to anybody. It just depends on where you would start. Ed, I don't know if you've got anything to put in from the FLP side of things for exemptions and where people are in.
It's by sort of the next couple of months, FLP is going to have exactly the same exemptions process anyway. So it's all moving together. It's slightly different at the moment, but that's fine. So I was saying about an MSc and an MBA. So it's difficult to comment on every single instance, but if you go onto our website, we've got an exemptions database that you can search. And depending on which masters and what MBA you did, we have a load of different different entry routes depending on if it's accredited or not. But John, Io, and anyone else who's asking, we have a team of 4 or 5 who review all the exemptions, so it's too much for Claire or myself to retain this knowledge on an individual basis.
I've
Thanks,
just
Claire.
put in the chat box the link to our exemptions page. So basically, if somebody's saying University of Bedfordshire, if you go on to there, you can find University of Bedfordshire, you can find your program that you do, and you can see what exemptions you'd be able to gain. But we are pretty much, if you're doing an accounting finance degree or an MSc in accounting finance, then we've probably got accreditation through your university, because we do work with most universities in the UK. All of them, I'd say. So I think we are literally coming up to our last few minutes. And I'm just trying to sort of see if there's anything that we haven't gone through. Okay. Please, I did not get your
I've had a few LinkedIn requests already, which is good.
Okay, so
someone's listened to me.
So as I said, for BA Business Management, you probably would get 4 exemptions out of the 16 papers, but I would go onto the exemptions search because it might differ between universities and everything, because sometimes we have partnerships with various universities that might affect exemptions. Right. So it's saying follow back, we need connections. Okay, yeah. There you go. Been given a task. So in the last couple of minutes, I will just do a bit of a close for the session today. And I'd like to thank you all. I was BA in economics. Okay, yes. So you'd have 4 out of the 16 papers. It's all about exemptions, isn't it? But that's good to hear that you're interested. But yeah, I thank you all to, thank you very much to those of you who've joined the session today. And thank you for being so interactive, particularly with the questions and with the psychometric testing and sort of giving that a go and everything. Get practicing and train your brain for those tricky psychometric questions, and get your LinkedIn profile together and looking polished, and follow or connect the team at the association. And we would be obviously happy to follow and connect with you as well. But good luck to all of you with whatever you choose to go on to do. Any feedback about the session would be great. So please just, let us know on LinkedIn. And
I think you should get, there's a few people asking about the email afterwards. I think you should get an email after the session that will have the link to the recording. Yeah. I'm hoping anyway. It's not our platform, so I can't guarantee how it works, but I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, I believe that is. All right. Well, thank you very much, and good luck, everybody. And I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. So waiting to click on those requests after this session.
Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers.